Greetings, system failure listeners. Nate here and Brian over there. Brian, how are you doing this week, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good, Nate.
I've heard that you went to a Magic tournament over the weekend. Usually we record on Saturdays, but today we're recording on a Sunday to clear the schedule for a Magic tournament. And so how did that go?
Well, it was a team event at ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Massachusetts.
It's one of those Massachusetts tournaments. What is a team event?
Yeah, so you get a team of 3 together, and you just kind of do battle. So, normally it's just, you're on your own trying to make your way through the ranks. But a team event, well, you can kind of consult each other and ask, what you would do. But, the team that has 2 players wins the match. And of course, in each players playing a best of 3 games. Does that make sense?
All right, so you have 3 people sitting on either side of the table. Let's be real, 3 dudes sitting on either side of the table. And there's 3 games going on, but you can consult your teammates.
Yeah, and ask them if you should keep or mulligan your hand, or if you have a tactical question about your play. But yeah, so you're just playing 3 separate games at the same time.
And so whichever team wins 2 or 3 games wins the round.
Right.
I see. So do you have a crew of merry miscreants that you travel down? Do you do what happens if you don't have 3 people? Can you just not sign up for this tournament? I would think that would be a substantial barrier to entry. If you're running a tournament, this seems like a wrinkle that could potentially cost you participants, and they must want as many participants as possible. So can you get matched up with a team when you're there, or do you bring your own?
Well, you would need a coordinated team ahead of time. Discord is what everyone uses these days. There used to be these forums online, but no one uses those anymore on account of Discord, for better or for worse.
Oh, it's even easier for communicating with your chums. You just have separate channels for the different topics. It's pretty good.
But I got a team by going on the Discord basically, but me and some other winners down there banded together is pretty much what happened. But yeah, in the team event, I guess it was exciting. Well, it just happened 3 times where one of my cohorts had won and then the other had lost, and then I was going into game 3, which is the rubber match, the deciding one. And so, it was all on me, basically. And it happened 3 times where I had to win the match for our squad. And that's just what I did, including both, single elimination matches. Well, it cuts down to a top 4, but usually it's a top 8, but due to team dynamics, the playoffs is a top 4.
Oh, your table with 3 guys on one side and 3 on the other. The games don't go on simultaneously. They go on,
Well, they do go on simultaneously.
Oh, so just the way that the timing worked out, you were just the last man standing.
Right.
I see. Okay. All right. That's interesting. And so you managed to secure victory for your team on all 3 occasions?
Yeah, I just did
buddy.
it. And I just went, undefeated on the day.
Nice.
And so did this other dude, the Hodge. And
he was on your team.
Yeah.
Well, if 2 of you all went undefeated, you must have won the tournament.
Well, yeah, that's just what happened.
Nice. And did you get a sweet prize, some vintage Magic card or something?
Well, I got $175 in store credit.
That's even better than a vintage Magic card. In store credit, though. It's not. You said dollars, and I thought they'd hand you a check. But
no.
Well, what are you going to get with your store credit? Anything good?
What I need to do is get $2,000 of store credit together so I can get a Bazaar of Baghdad, which is a classic from Arabian Nights, the set from 1994.
Yeah,
and then
that's
I'll
a real set.
3 more Bazaars of Baghdad to complete my set so I can play in these vintage tournaments.
That makes me think of Eminem's classic song, Bagpipes of Baghdad, which we will not be playing for the audience because that will get us a YouTube strike. But, if you've not heard it, I would recommend that you listen to Bagpipes of Baghdad. It's an anti-Iraq war song, but it makes me think of you, Bazaar of Baghdad, the Arabian Nights card.
Well, there's Bombs Over Baghdad by Outkast. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. Yeah. Well, congratulations on another successful voyage down to Massachusetts and a triumph at the Magic card table. It's always fun to crush. What is the line from Conan the Barbarian? See your opponents crushed and have their women driven before you and hear the lamentations of their women. That's what it is. Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentations of their women. So that's very good.
That's basically it. Yeah, that's basically what happened. And I was driving back. I don't know. I was popping some Zins on the way back, and I have to say that these Zin 3s just really don't do it.
Yeah, that means you're building up a callus or a tolerance to those Zin 3 pouches.
Well, I haven't had any Zins in over a week, and you would think that in that amount of time, your tolerance would reset or something. If in my weed smoking days, if I took a week off from smoking weed, if you have a toot on the old Magic Sax, Like it really like throws you through a loop and gives you like an out of body experience kind of thing. But I guess just not the case with the Zins. The neural pathway is not as elastic, it seems.
That's an interesting observation. I shall have to. I bought a Zin pouch that was unfortunately the citrus flavor during my Walmart deliveries on
What's
Monday.
wrong with you, man? Why would you get the citrus flavor?
I don't know, man. You told me not to get the citrus flavor, or you told me never to get any flavored Zins, and I don't know what I was thinking. But I was doing my Walmart deliveries. I was like, I could use some entertainment. And I just bought it on a whim, and it was so nauseating. I haven't gone back to it. It was just a terrible, terrible experience overall. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think the Zins are really for me. They don't really work with my brain. They don't seem compelling. The way that a glass of Pinot Noir or a toot on the aforementioned Magic Sax. Those things play my brain like a skilled pianist might play a grand piano. But
virtuoso.
The Zins, man, I don't know. They just make me feel slightly nauseous, and so they kind of make you not bored because you're now slightly nauseous. But I don't really feel that. I don't know. I guess they just don't seem to work on me that well. I don't find them compelling, and I don't really find them addictive. I don't. Some people like. The deaf frat guy, the comedian from Brattleboro, Vermont, who sometimes appears in the old Adam Carolla podcast. I love that deaf frat guy, but maybe I listened to a random Carolla pod maybe over the summer or something, and the DFG was talking about how he was hoarding Zin pouches in his basement. They were stacked floor to ceiling with Zin pouches. Which is funny, and I see them. They're all over the place. Like they're in all the urinals. People will spit the little Zin pouches in like the urinals.
You do see that.
Yeah.
If you're wondering what those pouches are,
yeah, they're stuck all over the hockey locker rooms, like playing hockey. Up at Bridgeton Academy. With our dad every Thursday night, I see those Zin pouches like stuck to the benches in the locker rooms. The benches on the ice. I don't know. Some and they're incredibly popular, but. I don't know. I just don't think the Zins are a good drug for me. I like a good drug, but it's gotta interact. It's gotta have synergy with your brain chemistry.
Yeah, well, to me, it's just that it's not compelling is what kind of makes it compelling, just because if it was too compelling, I would be trying to do these things all the goddamn time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have learned my lesson. The next time I get tempted to try one of these Zin pouches, I will definitely not be any kind of flavor on there. That's just the worst.
I don't know what it is, because like we looked it up, right? And like a Zin 6 is supposed to be like 3 cigarettes worth of nicotine or something.
Yeah, I think I can't remember what it was, but yeah.
It's like several cigarettes, and the thing is, you don't like get all the nicotine out of cigarettes. But I just really don't find the Zins to be like addictive, and so it just isn't that compelling. I guess if you pop them all the time, maybe it would be like hard to stop. But I guess obviously people are addicted to nicotine. I don't know what to make of it.
I have had some cigarettes in my day, and similar to the nicotine, I never found cigarettes compelling. Most of my cigarette smoking happened when I went to Serbia. And the Serbs, they still are. They just love cigarettes over there. It's not like they're still like America in the 1980s over in Serbia. So it was like a big deal. Oh, we're going to give our guests the fine, Russian cigarettes. They had these crazy Russian cigarettes that were like black with like a gold tip. And they also give you rakia, so you're just constantly, you're like, I really don't want any alcohol. Oh, my stomach is going to turn. But you don't like go to people's houses and be like rude. I wouldn't turn down their, they give you like a berry preserves, slatka, but they give you coffee at crazy hours. I remember showing up at someone's house. It was like 9 p.m. We'd gotten off the road. We got in there kind of late, and they're like making you coffee. And you're like, it is 9 p.m. I really don't want to drink this cup of coffee, but... Similar to all that, they're going to offer you a cigarette. It's going to be fun. Try it. But man, it just made me feel terrible. It wasn't like it just wasn't compelling. I guess maybe I just haven't figured out how to use nicotine or something. Maybe you just have to do it a lot more. I don't know, but I don't know, man. The Zin pouch craze. I think I'm gonna have to it's tempting because it's so popular, but I just don't think it's going to work out for yours truly.
Well, the key must be on a crazy cocktail of stimulants between the coffee and the cigarettes and the alcohol, and do it like James Bond, basically.
Yeah, like those James Bond books are crazy. Thunderball, in the beginning of Thunderball, the plot of Thunderball, as we all know, starts with Mr. Bond being sent to a clinic to improve his health because he's failed a what do you call it, a health inspection, like an MI6 like health. What do you call it in the military when you have like a health assessment? I forgot the word, but he fails it because he's smoking he's just smoking like 20 cigarettes a day or something. They mention in the book how many cigarettes he's smoking a day, and it's something like 20, some crazy number. And the dude's just drinking all the time, And it turns out that Bond feels a whole lot better in the book after going to this health clinic and eating proper food. And an interesting thing, and I maybe even read an excerpt from this on the podcast a 3 months ago, but there's an interesting passage where they talk about how bad sugar is for you, and this was like 1957 or something when Thunderball came out. So it's interesting that we've always known about the horrors, the ravages of sugar on the body. Even there was like a whole. You may recall, like in the 2010s, it came out that famous Harvard study had been influenced behind the scenes by the sugar manufacturers to blame heart disease on fats instead of sugars, and that launched America on this whole low fat, during the 80s and 90s, this whole low fat thing.
I remember my Sour Patch Kids would say they were fat free on them.
That's really funny. Yeah. But yes, James Bond, the drug use, it's like that Homer Simpson thing where he's got the lobster, Mr. Pinchies. He's domesticated this lobster, from the lobster pound, and he's put it in the aquarium with the fish, but the lobster wants salt water, so he pours enough salt, so the lobster's like dying in the fresh water, so he pours salt in, and the lobster comes back to life, but then the fish die, so he pours some fresh water, and you gotta mix all your drugs together to create like like the perfect cocktail or stew, I guess, or at least that's what James Bond seems to do. So. All right. Well, Zin's not so good, but Magic Cards, big success. That's fun, eh, Brian?
Yes, sir.
Well, it was a monster week in the news this week. In terms of like the Epstein files and Zoran Mamdani visiting the White House and a rift between Georgia's representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Georgia district number 17 or something, I think, is where Marjorie comes from. But like fighting between the OG Donald supporters and the Donald himself. And like I already mentioned, the communist or democratic socialist Zoran Mamdani visiting the White House, and much excitement on the Epstein files, and lots of economic indicators in the news to get to too. But what do you think of Mr. Mamdani visiting the White House and being all chummy with the president? Pretty interesting, eh, Brian?
It is pretty interesting. I guess you gotta wonder what Donald Trump's strategy is going to be going forwards, because right now it seems like, the Republican Party is going to get shellacked in the midterms, and that Donald Trump, the most important issues to the American electorate are like the Epstein files and like our relationship with Israel, right?
America first, let's say broadly.
Yeah, America
let's just
first,
say when people are suffering, no one can afford a home. The cost of everything is going up, and yet we're shipping out billions of dollars to Israel and Ukraine.
Yeah, and so Donald Trump has really not come through on the two most important things. And so, well, it just is really fascinating that he's, glad-handing with Zoran Mamdani, that's it. And I don't know, I guess you would hope that maybe it signifies that Donald Trump's going to make some kind of populist turn.
I hope that he cares, right? The man can't, presumably can't run for office again, although it's worth noting that the reason that presidents can only serve 2 terms is because the establishment wanted to clap a limit on FDR, Mr. Roosevelt, he won, I think 4 national elections, and they were like, okay, the New Deal is so overwhelmingly popular that we are never going to get this man out of office unless we can slap some term limits on these presidential elections. I think it was in the first year after, I believe it was the case that Roosevelt was reelected in 44, if I have my dates right, or was it 46? It has to have been 44, right, because then he died. And then Truman took over just in time to drop the bombs on Japan. Right? Isn't that the story? There's this famous conspiracy theory or anti-conspiracy theory canard that the government could just never keep a secret. They were just terrible at keeping secrets. But worth noting, Harry Truman had to be briefed on the nuclear testings in Alamogordo because he, as the vice president, had no idea what was going on. So that's pretty interesting. I guess it's also worth noting that the same nuclear tests out in the desert did get infiltrated by foreign spies. So that happened too. So
Wow.
Still interesting that the vice president had no idea what was going on. That's
Well, it's all just very politically fascinating. I guess you have to wonder if Donald Trump has some kind of plan, or if he's just he respects that Mamdani is he's like a winner, and so it's like game recognizing game, or. It's just so crazy that, Marjorie Taylor Greene has dropped out of the upcoming election, right?
Yeah, she'll not be seeking re-election next year in 26. That's what the headlines I'm reading.
That just seems like absolutely devastating. That just seems like the opposite of what Donald Trump should be trying to do. I don't know. It's crazy because she had like a huge surge of popularity as she came out as like a Republican, condemning the lack of release of the Epstein files and, saying like America first type things. And so she was castigated by Donald Trump. It's just absolutely crazy. But now Donald Trump is going to glad hand with this New York socialist mayor. And so like, what does that mean?
Yes, and like the Donald's treatment of the Epstein files, right? It's like he like ran on like Drain the Swamp and would bring up the Epstein files on the campaign. And I think that I don't recall the Donald ever saying that he would definitely release the Epstein files. In fact, I remember him hedging he talked about it so much that the media would ask him, "Will you release the Epstein files when you get into office?" And he would be like, I'm not so sure about that. So I don't think that he ever necessarily promised to release the Epstein files, but it's just been interesting to see the way that he doesn't seem to have like a grand strategy for how to deal with them. Like, I can't believe that if the man is implicated in the Epstein files, that he would like draw attention to it and breathe oxygen onto those hot coals during the campaign, only to get into office and be scorched by the resulting flames from blowing oxygen on those hot coals. Like, it does seem like the man is just kind of like, the worst case scenario here is the man's got no real plan, and then he just wants to, pump and dump his Bitcoin or his stable coin, whatever it is, the Trump coin, he just wants to pimp that Trump coin and make a huge secure real estate deals in foreign countries to get them to relax, like Vietnam, right? The Donald slaps a tariff on Vietnam, but then the Vietnamese offer his family a, multi-billion-dollar real estate deal in Vietnam, and he relaxes the tariffs. Worst case scenario is the man just has no plan, and we just get that for the next 3 years, and it's just a nothing.
Well, why is like Ghislaine Maxwell, she's like in, Club Fed or whatever, or this, this low security prison, like getting special treatment.
Yeah, I heard they let her have a puppy in jail.
Yeah, so like, are they... Like, is that because she has blackmail on Donald Trump? Like, you'd kind of have to assume so, just the way that things are panning out. But, I mean, maybe the months and months that Donald Trump's, been able to stall on this issue have given them time to, like, scrub any, like, thing incriminating from the files that they'd have to worry about. I don't even really know, like, what files are going to be released and, like, what is available to release that hasn't been released and what's going to come out that isn't just, pages and pages of, black censorship bars over the documents and whatnot. Yeah. And so how much does this even matter in the first place?
Well, yeah, I guess we should, it's like there's, like, the bill that the Donald signed, on Friday to release the Epstein files, or was it Thursday? But this past week, when the Donald signed the bill to release the Epstein files, like the bill says that we're going to release unclassified information, whatever unclassified information the Department of Justice has on Jeffrey Epstein. So like that's a huge loophole, right? Like you said, they could just classify everything, and that will be that, and we'll just not have any idea, But on the other hand, like, people I don't think are going to tolerate, or they already tried to fob off the public with, remember the influencers showed up at the White House, right? And they gave them all binders of information that had already been released, right? Pam Bondi invited the AG, our esteemed Attorney General Pam Bondi invited all these Instagram influencers to the White House and gave them all binders that were just already released information. That were nothing. And they thought that maybe that would make the Epstein files go away. And then when people still asked about the Epstein files after that, Pam Bondi would say that, oh, they're on my desk, or, we still have to go through them, or we can't release them because there's too much child porn. And then later Pam was like, well, there are no Epstein files at all, And then the Epstein files still didn't go away, in no small part thanks to the efforts of Kentucky representative, Thomas Massey, one of these libertarian types who, terribly confused about economics, but lovable. Everyone loves libertarians. They're the best. Even if they are quaint, even if their economics are quaint and smile-inducing. Love that Thomas Massey for hammering this drum, despite, come what may, despite having the Donald turn on him, similarly to having turned on Marjorie Taylor of Georgia, threatening to help primary Thomas Massey and support his opponents in a potential primary. So, Massey seems like a man who's actually got principles and actually intends to vote according to those principles instead of holding his nose and making unpleasant compromises.
It's just crazy to think that apparently the administration thinks that they can just stall on this issue and then it's gonna go away. But obviously it's not going away. They must realize it's not going away, and so they're just doing the one thing that's available to them, because they certainly can't come out and say that Epstein is blackmailing all our politicians. What they should do is just give an actual account of what happened. And I guess Dave Smith was going on about this on his last podcast. But how did Epstein get hired to teach at that elementary school in New York? How at the investment firm he was in, I can't remember which one it was.
Lehman Brothers, right? Isn't that where he was working?
Probably one of those. And how did he rise through the ranks? What's it going to take to get some actual answers, right? That's what we need. And then, what's going on? What was he blackmailing? Which politicians are being blackmailed and what for? What's it going to take to get these answers? I guess they can't give us these answers, right? Because the answer is bad. It's too shocking. It's going to pull everything apart.
That's it. Yeah, I think that the Donald can't. I think that to reveal the true nature of the Epstein affair would be to reveal vast structures of power that the public doesn't know about. Or doesn't. We think that we elect a president and that we live in a country, a Westphalian nation state. And I just think that the nation state is it's a fun fiction to tell the public, but it's not reflective of the actual reality of the way that the power is structured in the world. And so to reveal the true deeds of Jeffrey Epstein would reveal the fact that there are, it's like the James Bond villains. There are the organizations behind the scenes that actually that actually run things. You remember that guy, Jason Giorgiani? I think it's Jason Reza Giorgiani. He was on American Alchemy recently. He's an author, Persian-American author. Got all this stuff on UFOs and philosophy. He was recently on American Alchemy again, anyhow. And, now I forgot what I was going to say about, what was it?
Do you expose the truth about our reptilian overlords?
He has his whole thing is that his whole thesis is that we're stuck in this within this power structure we don't understand. Anyway, his point was that Ian Fleming, the guy who wrote the James Bond books, came into contact with these structures of power during World War II, and based a lot of the man had real experience, and so his secret organizations like Spectre is based on experiences this man actually had working for the British Secret Service during the Second World War. So there's a strange. It's James Bond is a strange, warped for entertainment purposes, but a strange insight into these very same structures of power that seem to be lurking behind the Epstein affair. Yeah,
well, it's a classic intermingling of truth and propaganda to try to put a positive spin on the British CIA agency that's not involved in enslaving small countries, right, or India or whatever.
Yeah, it's 1953, Mohammad Mossadegh, the man who's running Iran, gets some strange ideas, some funny ideas about how maybe the oil coming out of the ground in Iran ought to be used for the benefit of the Iranian public and not sent to British Petroleum for their profiteering purposes. And of course, the British intelligence worked with American intelligence to overthrow the socialist Mohammad Mossadegh and reinstall the Shah of Iran, and that set the stage for all the excitement we had with Iran this past year, as far as bombing them and trying to cancel their nuclear program on behalf of the Israelis and what have you.
It would be awesome if James Bond went over there and overthrew the government and then got the Shah installed ultimately and, had to go away in shame or something. Or that would be a wild turn for old James Bond, huh?
This would be the way to do a James Bond movie, right? Introduce a class lens to it, right? Have a story about Mr. Bond being dispatched to Iran to help with the overthrow of Mohammad Mossadegh and the reinstallation of the Shah, and have him, have to go through the struggle of realizing that, oh man, maybe working for the British Secret Service isn't a moral thing to be doing.
Yeah, like he could believe in the British story at first, but then go over there and see like the Iranian people and change his mind, and then he has to go back and fight, the British government, and then find out that they're run by lizard people, and he has to have a crazy shootout with them.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, before we wander too far away from Mr. Zoran Mamdani's visit to the White House, I just wanted to put one final thought in that can, and that is that for me, like, there were polls earlier this year, post to the 2024 re-election of Donald Trump. Between that and then, the November of 2025, there were polls showing that despite a collapse in the popularity of Republicans, the Democrats were not getting more popular. But then this November, we had the Dems kind of run the table, and Zoran Mamdani was part of it. It was a big part of the successes of Democrats. But the other successful Democrats were like the likes of Abigail Spanberger, who got elected, who's a former CIA officer and a Democrat who got elected to the governor's mansion in Virginia. It's like, I don't know. For me, the disgruntled Bernie voter of 2016 and 2020. For me, I want to get back to voting for the Democrats, but it's important to me that the Democrats not regain power without pivoting towards Bernie Sanders, Zoran Mamdani style economics. And so I don't know. I almost hate to see, I'm excited to see, hopefully things can go well for Mamdani, but I wonder what it would mean for the remainder of the Donald's presidency if a bunch of those Democratic socialist type candidates got elected. In other words, I would like to see the way that the corporate media frames it is that this is like the extreme left, but I guess Bernie Sanders style politics would be the extreme left, right? The extreme left is not like wokeism and DEI, right? That is just I think that's just dispatched from the intelligence services to muddy the waters in the ongoing class war. And the real leftist policies, we need the winning formula, would be the same sorts of policies that made the New Deal so popular that FDR won 4 national elections, right? Those are the sorts of policies. So I don't want the Democrats to succeed until they pivot to those policies. So I don't know. For me, keeping score on the sideline, I'm excited about Zoran Mamdani, not so excited about Abigail Spanberger. I wish the Democrats nothing but ill so long as they continue to sandbag the Democratic socialist policies we desperately need to make this economy sustainable into the future.
Well, it's definitely good news that Donald Trump, I guess, isn't going to be trying to fight to stymie Mamdani's agenda here.
Yeah.
And apparently he has his support. And so that, I guess, bodes well for the future. One thing that's going on is famed Nazi Nick Fuentes. I don't know. He's being branded a Nazi by Mark Levin. Mark Levin. Yeah, I don't know. I used to listen to that guy screaming on there used to be a crazy. I remember coming home from college, so this would be 2004, 2003, and there was some crazy right wing radio up here in Maine. I remember hearing that guy screaming on that right wing way back then. I just remember driving back and forth between our parents' houses and having that on, So that's where I remember Mark Levin from. But I have not heard this man. Maybe I've heard him on a podcast clip or two, but I don't know who was what. He's got these clips. He's like, "What does Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes want to do with the Jews?" And it's like, I don't know,
so
man.
Bad. It's so bad.
Well, anyway, Nick Fuentes is saying that the liberals need to give up on immigration and that the Republicans need to give up on the free market, or they need to give up on not, I don't know, having government involvement in the economy, I guess. And so Tucker Carlson's YouTube channel just put out this clip. And so it's a debate between Tucker and Ben Shapiro. And I guess it's actually from 7 years ago. I was hoping it was for something recent because that would have been spicy. But in this debate, they're talking about whether AI, Tucker was saying that he would immediately put through legislation if he could to stop AI from taking over the trucking industry, because it's the number one job for men without high school diploma, or with high school diplomas, is driving trucks around.
Yeah, those CDL jobs.
And so he would not hesitate to hinder AI development to keep people jobs, and Ben Shapiro was, not having it. And so, I think that kind of summarizes what Nick Fuentes is saying about how Republicans need, what they need to do regarding their economics, right? They need to do things that are for the best for people, which is going to be something socialist sounding, right?
Well, a couple of thoughts on that. First of all, Republicans are never for laissez-faire markets, right? They sometimes are when they want to have their industries deregulated, like they want to make sure they talk about, just burdensome government regulations when they want their factory to be more profitable and not have to spend money complying with like safety regulations or cleaning up pollution or things like that. But I think I hope all Americans at this point, they don't fall for this shtick, right? Because when they blow out, when the banks like blow up the global economy, they rush to Washington to secure their bailouts, right? They could bail out. It's just nonstop bailouts. We saw it again during the COVID era with all those PPP loans, right? All these like free market people were all taking out PPP loans and then got forgiven, right, by the government. So like, no one really wants a free market. It just sometimes people don't want to pay for compliance with regulations, but that's really the only context that these people act. So I guess I agree with young Fuentes on that front. Let's be serious. Like the laissez-faire, like you hear libertarians sometimes talk about this, but like the laissez-faire economists get embarrassed every time. Every time someone seriously advocates for like laissez-faire markets, you have some crazy crash that requires some kind of social engineering to fix and prop the system back up on its feet and rewind up the toy so it can keep going. Capitalism is just incredibly unstable the way that it works, right? It's not enough that our goods and services should be bought and sold on a market. The businesses that make the products and to provide the services are themselves traded on a market. That's the idea behind capitalism, and that's just an incredibly unstable way to run business. And so capitalism has its booms and bust cycles, and during the boom cycles, you get a lot of laissez-faire, chain rankling. But then during the bust cycles, we really need that. Then that goes away. You laissez-faire. Like that's why I don't think. You don't really get people seriously, other than like libertarians, seriously advocating for laissez-faire economics. But yes, so that's a long-winded way of saying I agree with young Fuentes. The free market, the advocacy for free markets or for deregulation or for laissez-faire capitalism is like the red cape of the matador, right? They just wave it and the bull charges through the cape into the empty space beyond every time.
Well, if you want your job, replaced by like a robot, maybe laissez-faire capitalism is for you. Yes. Capitalism definitely requires like intervention in markets to keep it going. There's so many examples at this point. All right.
Well, what do you think, Brian? Should we take a little break and come right back? I do think that, not to raise the curtain too far, but I finished my coffee. It looks like you finished yours, and I didn't see you spill a single drop this week, so that is a very impressive performance.
It was a very focused effort on my part.
Okay. We'll take a quick short break, and we shall be right back. And we're back. Well, Brian, turning away from the political and towards the economic, I see in the Wall Street Journal this week that Verizon is about to lay off 13,000 employees, their biggest layoffs of all time. And I know someone that used to work for Verizon, and I think I know someone else who still works for Verizon. I'll have to check with her. I can't remember if she still works there or not. But that's interesting because I know a few folks who currently work or have recently worked at Verizon. But yeah, that is shocking to see. It feels like the stock market was taking major losses this week. It seemed like things were unstable in the world of equities, and man, it sure seems like it sure seems like the season is starting to change or starting to turn with respect to the economy, and this business with Verizon doing its biggest layoffs ever fits neatly into that category. I couldn't see anywhere in the Wall Street Journal where these layoffs were designed to be were because of AI specifically, but this, file this under massive layoffs. Most of the big layoffs that are happening, it's like Amazon announcing that they're going to need 500,000 fewer workers in 4 years than they have. They're going to not hire 500,000 workers that they otherwise would have by 2030. Absolutely shocking. But it seems like we are in a period like the job market is just terrible. Now, we did get a jobs report this week that had an unexpectedly high number of new hires, like non-farm payrolls increased by an amount that was unexpected, but unemployment also ticked up because the number of people looking for work, the pool of people looking for work but not finding it, also expanded. So I don't know. That seems like a mixed message.
I saw that.
So that is interesting. We did, speaking of the Marxian prophecy of technological unemployment rendering the capitalist system non-viable at some point in the future, the big news out of Google this week is they released their Gemini 3 model. And also in the Wall Street Journal had an article about how superior Gemini 3 is to any of ChatGPT's offerings. And the company OpenAI that makes ChatGPT has taken on all this debt, and this is true across the large language model, across the AI sector. They've taken on insane amounts of debt, and they have debt obligations, and there was a chart showing the debt obligations in 2026 and in 2027 and in 2028. And the debt obligations are many orders of magnitude, high. They're an order of magnitude higher than the revenue that OpenAI generates. So I mean, if Google, the issue is just that Google has just so much more data than OpenAI does, right? OpenAI doesn't really have any data of its own. They have to crawl the internet and get data where they can. But Google has all of your chats, all the pornography sites you visit, all of everything. They have their whole search, the whole internet. They have everything indexed. With that much information, I mean, it's not surprising that Google would pull ahead in the game. But I mean, I'm thinking that if one company, be it Google or any of the other ones, becomes the clear head and shoulder winner, you could see a massive contraction in the loser companies, Anthropic or OpenAI or these other companies that have a AI that's just not as good. I mean, it became like Kleenex or Band-Aids. There are certain products where the idea of the product becomes synonymous with a particular brand name, and Googling things became that. Google for decades had this near monopoly on Google searches. So I wonder if they'll be the winners in the AI space.
Well, to that end, I think ChatGPT is more synonymous with AI than anything else.
Yes, I agree. ChatGPT is like the classic large language model or AI model at this point, but I wonder if that all changed this past week.
Certainly. I mean, Alta Vista used to be a thing.
Yeah, InfoSeek, Yahoo.
And so it is, OpenAI owns ChatGPT, right?
That's right, yep.
And then it's OpenAI who's all tied up with NVIDIA regarding their investments, where they've been spending money on NVIDIA, and NVIDIA's spending money on OpenAI.
Yeah, they're
inflating their stock price.
Prime examples of it, but the entire sector has these, what do they call it, round trip deals. That's what they call it, circular financing. The entire industry is cobbled together. Microsoft is involved. There's this big web of just all these round trip deals or circular financing deals where you give, you have all this money, and you want your vendors to be able to buy your product, so you essentially give them money to buy your product. And so it's you have the same amount of dollars before and after the operation, but now suddenly your vendors can afford to buy all this stuff from you. But it was your money that they're buying it with, and you repaid them in chunks of your own company. It's complex, but I mean it's it does seem like it's all a big house of cards. So I don't know. Will we see a major collapse in this sector once one company comes out ahead?
Well, I remember NVIDIA graphics cards, NVIDIA was going up crazily in their stock price, and people on Reddit were talking about trying to buy their graphics cards, and there was a big rush for NVIDIA graphics cards. But I guess it really has to do probably with OpenAI supporting them all along. And so to go back to the Verizon thing a bit, I mean, it is interesting. So I guess the fear is that from an economic standpoint is, it isn't that AI will live up to its expectation, but it's that it will, not. But on the other hand, I mean, you do see all these companies having massive layoffs, and the plans to, Amazon's trying to automatize their workforce and whatnot. And it just seems hard to imagine that it's not gonna happen. And so I don't know. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Well, there's two options, right? Either AI succeeds succeeds as we all might hope. That is to say that all this investor money pouring into the AI sector turns out to be a justified investment, and they're able to pay off all their investors and meet their debt obligations. But in that scenario, we're going to see massive structural unemployment, to where companies can run without many human employees at all, and you'll have a crisis of capitalism that will be a joy to deal with, I'm sure. The alternative scenario is that the AI bets do not work out, and that AI continues to I used Gemini 3. The past couple of days I've been messing with Google's new system. It doesn't seem all that impressive to me. The Wall Street Journal cited a whole menu of different benchmarks to show how superior this new Gemini 3 model is, but it still seems to hallucinate and give you the wrong information. And Do
you know what kind of benchmarks they cite?
Yeah, man. It's like they give it challenges, like coding challenges, something like that. I can't quite remember exactly what the details were now. And it seems opaque to me because it doesn't really seem it doesn't seem vastly, it doesn't give me penetrating insight on this week's system failure essay, for example. I hate to use AI in my writing process, but when I finish these essays, I like to put them in AI and just, do you see any typos or errors? Do you see any holes in the logic? Does it read well? Does the logic make sense? It's nice to have a third party to bounce your essays off of, but I didn't feel like I got great feedback this week. And it's always the case, and it's okay feedback.
Well, AI, it's like when the AI is talking to you, usually I just imagine it's this female voice, and it basically affirms whatever you've done. And it's oh, you're thinking about, I don't know, killing yourself? Here's some great ways, here's some great tips, and
yes.
It's stuff like that. But what AI should be is a high school football coach, grabbing your face mask and spitting into your face with Flex, and something like that would be, now that would be interesting. That would really get our society back on the right track here.
You're alluding to the other major problem with AI besides hallucinations, and that is sycophancy, right? It's just you've written an amazing essay. You're I don't know how amazing it really is, but I'm thank you for the compliment. But but sycophancy drives engagement, right? That's what keeps people plodding along. But you're right. I think that this is really funny to imagine a drill sergeant AI, taking a metal ladle, a wooden ladle, and banging a metal trash can, screaming your last easy day was yesterday. And that people would turn that off though, and they'd go back to watching Netflix and eating bugles on the couch.
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, I would be excited. I mean, if the AI would more meaningfully critique the things that I'm doing. I don't need sycophancy.
Yeah. I
need a drill sergeant to bang pots at 6 a.m. in the morning and be get up.
Well, I agree with you. That's what we all need, right? We all need a motivating voice. We don't need someone to reinforce our pre-existings, right?
Well, there's got to be a setting, one for Sally's and one for real men that you can switch back and forth.
You should be on the OpenAI board. I think these are great ideas.
Yeah.
Well, continuing on the theme of the economy, I have been driving around in my car making some Walmart deliveries when I got spare time.
Right. It's just super 2025, going around and making deliveries of goods for people who can afford it somehow.
Yeah.
That's what's in all our future.
I don't know how Walmart can afford to pay Spark drivers. They're what are they, the third-party contracting fleet that just goes around and drops people's packages off. I can't believe it's they're paying $20 and $30 for me to do that. And the people receiving the packages are getting the same price for their goods and their goods that are on the shelves as if they'd picked themselves off the Walmart shelves. Unless they're ordering an express delivery that's 90 minutes or less. Most of these deliveries are just people ordering their groceries on the app. A lot of people don't tip. I don't tip when I use the Walmart app. And so I just can't imagine that it's profitable for Walmart. I mean, they must be losing money hand over fist with these deliveries, but I suspect they're trying to, isn't it Walmart's way to offer super low prices, take a loss, but to establish market share doing that? Isn't that normally their strategy? So it's got to be what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they probably do have fantastic margins on a lot of the garbage that they sell. And then, I mean, they need to maintain market share and not lose it to Amazon. So they kind of maybe don't have a choice. Yeah.
Well, to match the gloomy economic news with respect to technological unemployment, I really feel like I'm seeing a lot of for sale signs out there. And this week I even saw a price reduced sign.
Wow.
On one of the, I was like, We've Redfin reported a week or two ago. Redfin, they're like a Zillow competitor online, and they reported that there are 500,000 more sellers than buyers currently in the housing market. But the sellers don't want the sellers don't want to, right? They don't want to accept. They want to make money on their house, or at least break even based on the, they have this market on, and they don't want to accept like a lower price. But I don't know. I just wonder if we're getting close here. A couple of pieces of news. First of all, the Unusual Whales tweeted out, per the National Association of Realtors. This Unusual Whales Twitter account?
No.
They're a great Twitter account. Unusual Whale, like the baleen of the sorts of whales, like humpback whales. They're not not carnivores. They stream the plankton out of the water, and they have that baleen, that they use in their mouth. And anyway, if you look at a graph of options flows, it looks like that. It looks like the teeth of one of these, the baleen of one of these whales. So anyway, they're a great account to follow for like economic news. And they were just citing the National Association of Realtors. The median age of all home buyers, including first-time and repeat buyers, has hit an all-time high of 59 years old.
That is truly a shocking figure.
Yeah, that is a late Roman Empire number right there. I mean, you're just talking about harvesting the young on behalf of the old at this point. I mean, that is just wild. Furthermore, Yahoo is reporting that Zillow is reporting that more than half of U.S. homes lost value in the past year, right? So if that's happening, like there really might be a top here in the housing market. Here's another headline from CNBC: New foreclosures jumped 20% in October, a sign of more distress in the housing market. And here's a little detail. Foreclosure starts, which are the initial phase of the process, rose 6% for the month and were 20% higher than the year before. Completed foreclosures, the final phase, were up 32% year over year. Florida, South Carolina, and Illinois led the nation in state foreclosure filings. Wild, man. That is wild stuff. Like, I do feel like at a certain point, you can have like an explosion in housing prices. A lot of this has to do with like second wave feminism and introducing, sending our women to work alongside our men. And that just has the knock on effect of, well, over the decades, every time, if you're a single earner, like if you just have one income on your mortgage application, you're going to be outcompeted by people who can put two incomes on that mortgage application and therefore afford to take on more debt, and therefore they can outcompete your bid. So just over time, it gets to a place where you have to have two mortgages, two incomes on your mortgage application to hope to compete for a house. And that's really the reality. Most people nowadays, both parents go to work. They drop their kid off at daycare on the way in and out in the mornings and evenings, and that's the reality. Like, no one's home during the day. But we're not going to be able to continue, and that drives appreciation in home prices. And you're just not going to be able to go from one income to two and then go from two income to three, right? People aren't going to start organizing in thruples. Like, a few might, but we're not going to be able to go from two incomes on a mortgage application to three to keep the capital gains going.
It's growing, the polyamory in popularity.
Yeah, maybe that's the future
to the housing crisis.
Yeah, you could get just a whole bunch of people band together.
A fourple.
That sort of thing, you can just see where it's just not going to be the case that you're going to be able to buy a house for $80K and then sell it a couple decades later for $400K. That's just not a trick we can do over and over again, right? It will just, so I don't know. I'm just wondering if the top's coming in and if those 500,000 more sellers than buyers that exist in the marketplace are finally going to have to blink and be like, all right, fine, we'll take $50K less than we thought. Or, once that starts to happen, you get the effect of the snowball rolling down the hill, right? Once the first person's like, fine, I'll take a $50K hit. I got divorced. Because of the disparity in old mortgage rates versus new mortgage rates, no one can afford, I'm going to have to just take, I can't, because of that disparity, I'm just going to have to take $50K less on the house than I had hoped for. And then once that starts, you see the neighbors have sold for $50K less, than houses have broadly be going for, then the next person is like, well, I guess I got to sell mine too soon before it goes down another $50K, and you just get that, that bubble bursting effect.
Yeah. Well, the the lowering of home values will also diminish divorce rates, so that is exciting. There's nothing like spiraling home values to make you want to check out of your marriage. Be like, I can get out of here with hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of stories about. I just remember another Wall Street Journal story, like a month or two ago, about a couple that had gotten divorced, but because the housing market is all locked up, they were like still forced to live together, and it was like wildly uncomfortable. The chick was living in a trailer in the back that she had outfitted, and like the kids would like spend some nights with mom in the trailer and some nights with dad in the house. It was just a brutal situation from top to bottom.
Well, Saga from Breaking Points, I think, was talking about this, but there is a thing where like multi-generational housing isn't really like a norm here in the US of A, but I think in a lot of other places it is.
Yeah, I think about Italy, where like everyone's grandparent. No, people don't go to the nursing home, right? Everyone's grandparents live in the house.
Yeah, and so I mean, to be fair, that probably is the kind of thing we should have going on, and that sounds a lot better than like fourples.
Yeah, it does sound more appealing. You're right about that. Okay, well, so just another note here. There was an interesting piece in the Portland Press Herald, which is our local Maine newspaper this week. It was about Maine restaurant owners blame staffing challenges on housing shortage. And the sub-headline was, business owners say they can't afford to pay workers the high wages necessary to keep up with rising housing prices. And even when they can, there's nowhere for employees to live. And that really, you can just see the connection between high housing prices and the nobody wants to work anymore phenomenon, right? It's like if you're a business owner, my heart goes out to entrepreneurs trying to run these small businesses. Like, how are you supposed to run a small business when the passive property owning class is jacking up rents and making it utterly impossible for you to be able to pay a meaningful wage to any potential employees, right? And it goes back to the foundation thinkers of capitalism. We talk about them all the time here. Your John Stuart Mills, your Adam Smiths, your David Ricardos. That's why these guys advocated for hammering the propertied classes with money. Or in other words, heavily taxing unearned income so that you don't have the situation where the landlords can just extract wealth from the business owners, which is exactly what we're seeing here in Portland with all of our restaurants closing down. Because who can afford to pay servers enough to live in the city of Portland when rent's $2,500 every single month? That's a lot. And it also, we talked about laissez-faire capital, the idea of laissez-faire markets in the first half of the show. But it really shows the misguided nature of laissez-faire economics that even the foundation thinkers of capitalism were for placing a heavy tax burden on the property classes, right? They are not, to the foundation thinkers of capitalism, a free market was not a market free from regulation. It was a market free from rent, because rent has a destructive impact on the actual productive economy, and that's exactly what this Portland Press Herald article is all about. You don't even have to read the article; just the headline and the subheadline tells you the whole story. So that's pretty wild stuff. I don't know. I feel like something's got to give here, and it feels like the glaciers breaking up, like we're headed into another more dark times, economically speaking.
It would be nice if the businesses could afford to have employees, and that the employees could afford housing. Imagine like how great you would feel every day in that kind of society.
Instead of having homeless people on the street losing their minds.
Yeah, they're just like passed out, and there's needles everywhere.
Yeah.
And little Zyn pouches stuck everywhere.
Yes. Yeesh. Well, you can't have. Right, the foundation thinkers of capitalism they just noticed you can't have too many free riders. Right, the ratio of passive income, unearned income to earned income, you have to be really careful with that, because if there's too many toll booths and not enough road, then if it's just all toll booths and not enough road in the economy, you'll just end up with a dysfunctional economy, and that's exactly what we're seeing, an increasingly dysfunctional economy.
Well, what we need to do is brand these people as like, ticks and leeches and parasites in the zeitgeist, and that will foment the necessary change. Instead, it's like glorified to be like a bloated tick, just like little legs, crawling crazily in the air, clawing at the air, I guess. It's It's not good.
Yeah, that's exactly it. See, every parasite or every good parasite has a mechanism by which it numbs the host, or so the host won't be aware that it's got a parasite. I think we talked about the fish that has the worm that replaces a fish's tongue, maybe a prior podcast. But point is, one of the classic hallmarks of parasitism is there's some kind of a numbing agent, some kind of a tactic to make the host unaware that their blood is being harvested or sucked by this outside force. So then that in a lot of our economic discourse is that numbing agent. Like, for example, propaganda to the effect that we ought to have laissez-faire capitalism, right? That is a numbing agent that blurs the distinction between earned and unearned income, right? We're trying to deregulate the economy. We got the idea that the economy is over here and the state is something different from that, and that you can separate the state from the economy, right? It's just that idea is one of these numbing agents that makes us blind to the distinction between earned and unearned income. That brings me, Brian, to the coup de grace, the great story of the week, which is the humiliation of one Larry Summers, one of these Democratic apparatchiks. Do you remember this man, Larry Summers? He was the Treasury Secretary for the Clintons. It was he who spearheaded the deregulation of the Glass-Steagall in the late 90s and setting us up for the disaster of the great financial crisis of 2008. This man, Larry Summers, he was, I forget what his position was in the Obama White House, but he had one there too. One of these high-powered Democratic operatives. Dude, teaches at Harvard. He's previously been I don't know exactly how the structure of control works at Harvard, but he's been like a muckety-muck, like a president of the college or something like that. I can't quite remember what his position is there.
Well, I mostly became aware of him recently.
Yeah, well,
he was sort of behind the scenes.
Yeah, last week Democratic lawmakers released all these, Epstein-related documents, and part of these was Larry Summers emailing Jeffrey Epstein to get advice on how to nail the daughter of one of the Chinese Communist Party officials who was at Harvard. Right? He was and the dude sounded he sounded like a randy teenager. Like he was like, I don't want to be a friend without benefits is like one of the terms he used. I mean, it's just so shameful. And the best part about all this is it's not like Larry Summers can claim that he didn't know who Epstein was. He was sending this man emails about nailing this chick, right? He wanted to, plunder her gully hole, right? He's typing with Epstein the day before the man got arrested in 2019. So it's like, yeah, this man. And so he initially said that he was going to have to step back from his public-facing, positions. There a hilarious clip of him explaining this to his Harvard class circulated online this week that had me with a good belly laugh. I regret my thing with Jeffrey Epstein. And then just as it became a bigger and bigger story, he finally had to we're not even going to finish out the semester. I'm just going to have someone else teach the class, and I'm just going to disappear, fly to Jackson Hole and disappear in the woods for 3 years until this whole thing blows over. But man, this gives me great hope, Brian. You mentioned it before. The Epstein files, who knows what the Donald is doing with this Epstein business. But but it does seem like, little by little, more and more keeps coming out, right? That it's just too big a beast to hide under the carpet. And so we're getting a slow trickle of these kind of hilarious information. It was great. The Schadenfreude was it was glorious this week, seeing the private correspondence of Larry Summers and what a total creep this dude is. And the best part about it is that these people are always lecturing the rest of us, about how bad Nick Fuentes is and we should never talk to Nick Fuentes. This class of people who's always talking down to us, they're like total creeps and they're total reprobates, and no one should ever listen to a word these morons have to say. So anyway, I really, really enjoyed the public humiliation of Mr. Larry Summers this week. It was well done. It was some juicy steak for me.
Well, it's just a truly shocking and shameful scandal, and you'll love to see it.
Yeah, you sure do. Okay, so moving on from the humiliation of Larry Summers, there's just one last little item that I think we got to talk about in this podcast. And it's kind of taken a backseat to all the excitement over the Epstein files. But did you see the BBC got in trouble this week, right? Another one of these lectury sort of news outlets.
I did not.
Oh, man, dude. The BBC got their president had to resign, or whoever runs let me see. It was in my notes here. I forgot the name of the person and what their position was. The UK broadcaster's chairman calls decision to edit together two parts of a January 6, 2021 speech by Trump an error of judgment. I think that same chairman had to step down. Whoever it is that runs the BBC had to step down. They took, in other words, what the BBC did was they took the Donald's giving his speech on January 6th, and then they cobbled together some comments that were like minutes apart, like an hour apart. They cobbled them together to make it seem like the Donald was trying to incite a violent insurrection on January the 6th. And they got caught, and it's all over the news in the UK. And it's like, man, the BBC, I used to think of them as like NPR, like this gold standard in reporting, and they're just fabricating the news to meet their own ideological ends. I mean, it's like I will never. I mean, I just can't believe that they would like. What is in it for them? Like, who is making the BBC, compelling the BBC to do this, to humiliate themselves in this way? Like, just watching the classic legacy media immolate themselves has just been a bizarre scene to witness beyond any ability for me to summon the crude apparatus of the English language to describe.
Well, it's just crazy that these people can't figure out that this stuff is all like in the public record and you can easily find it. And I don't know, man. It's just absolutely crazy.
I think you make a good point. I think it's that these legacy media outlets have just been used to define the news for years, and they just are totally caught off guard. That it's like when the Daily Show came around during the Iraq War era, the 2000s, and like the way that it worked is Jon Stewart could just hit all these video archives, and his lackeys could just pull up, Republican lawmakers saying something something, and then them saying the exact opposite thing. Years before, it was like lawmakers were just used to saying whatever they wanted to say, and no one would ever compare that to their past record to. And so similarly, it seems like the BBC and other legacy media outlets just get used to define the news, and that no one's ever going to check them, and they can do or say whatever they want and act with impunity. And it turns out that, and they're just not used to the age of the internet, where people are like, yeah, we can see what you've done here, and what you're doing is fabricating the news to try to create some kind of a narrative, and that's the opposite of journalism, right? It's like.
Well, you used to be able to just brand anyone who wanted to criticize what the Israeli government was doing in Gaza as an anti-Semite, but it's just not the case anymore. And so, it is a wild time to be alive. Yeah, it's just so transparently crazy, and it makes you wonder. Like, I guess the news has just always been fabricated and crazy.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it used to be that there were only 3 news channels in the United States: NBC, ABC, CBS, and they had a sort of consensus they would portray. And back then the whole country kind of we were all on the same page because we were believing the lies from these super shifty media outlets. But now we've got all kinds. It's like the new printing press, right? It's like the new where the printing press arrived in Europe in the early 1400s, thanks to Mr. Johannes Gutenberg. Right, the church lost its monopoly over the flow of information. Right, you used to be able to confiscate books and burn them, but once you started mechanically pressing those books, the anti-Catholic pamphlets spread out throughout the Holy Roman Empire faster than the church could hope to confiscate and burn said pamphlets. And that's what's happening today, right? The power, the structures of power have lost control over the flow of information, and that's what happens when major economic systems, like feudalism in the Middle Ages or capitalism today, when these major economic systems start circling the drain, that's when we all start looking at our emperors to see if they're wearing any clothes.
No, they're not.
Yes, yeah, they're naked as the day they were born is the reality.
All right.
Well, we're getting close to time here, Brian, so I will just invite our wonderful System Failure listeners to visit us over at systemfailure.org. There you can enter in your email address and receive the weekly essays written by yours truly each and every Sunday morning in your email inbox. This week's essay was all about making another comparison between the late Middle Ages and the present time, and that is with the arrival of plagues and the way that plagues are often historically have a pattern of discrediting the authorities. Furthermore, if you want to get in touch with either Brian or myself, you can accomplish that tidy feat over on the About page simply by clicking on the appropriate name. And with that, we'll be back with another exciting, regularly scheduled episode of the System Failure Podcast next week on Monday. Can't wait to talk to you all then.
All right, see you, folks.